The human body, created by God, is like a powerful and perfectly tuned machine, capable of performing great feats. But just like any engine, it needs fuel to work properly. This essential fuel is food. God, in His wisdom, placed in us the instinct of hunger, a natural need that reminds us to nourish our bodies so that we can continue our daily activities with energy and vitality. The act of eating is therefore a fundamental part of the balance of life, a vital cog in maintaining the continuous movement of existence. But why would anyone choose not to eat? In modern times, we are taught that we should eat 3 meals a day. From an early age, we are taught that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, a solid foundation for facing the demands that await us. Phrases like "eat to stay strong" are common in schools, where we are taught the importance of a complete and balanced diet, combined with exercise, to maintain our health and strength. But in the midst of all this, the question arises, why would anyone decide to skip meals? Modern society often associates the practice of not eating with the concept of dieting, generally seen as a strategy for losing weight or improving health. However, there are those who choose to abstain from food for reasons that go beyond the physical, for deeply spiritual reasons. In the Bible, this practice is known as fasting. Fasting is not just a form of deprivation, it is a conscious act, carried out for a set period of time, with the aim of achieving a specific spiritual purpose. A significant example of fasting in the Bible can be found in the Old Testament, where God established an annual practice for the Jewish people. In Leviticus 16 verse 29, we read about the institution of fasting during the Day of Atonement, known as Yom Kippur. The verse says, "And this shall be a statute forever. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls, and do no work, whether it be any of your own country, or a stranger who sojourns among you." This fast, carried out on the Day of Atonement, had a profound spiritual meaning. God commanded His people to fast on this specific day so that everyone could remember the solemn experience of redemption. The Day of Atonement was a time of great reverence, when the high priest entered the most sacred place in the temple, the Holy of Holies, to offer the blood of a sacrifice in atonement for the sins of the entire nation. In Leviticus 16 verse 4 it says, "And he shall wash his body with water in the holy place, and put on his garments, and go out, and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people." Fasting, in this context, was a way for all the people to unite spiritually with the high priest, identifying with the sacrifice he made on behalf of all, for the forgiveness of sins. Later in the New Testament, Jesus reinforces the importance of fasting as a spiritual practice. In Matthew 6 verses 16 to 18, He tells His disciples, "When you fast, do not be sad like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have already received their full reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that it will not be evident to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who does not see. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Here, Jesus teaches us that fasting is a practice between the individual and God, an act of devotion that should be carried out with humility and sincerity, without the need for public display. Fasting, therefore, is much more than simply abstaining from food. It is an act of spiritual surrender, a moment in which a person dedicates themselves to seeking a deeper connection with God, turning away from physical needs to focus on spiritual ones. When fasting, we are invited to reflect on our actions, to draw closer to God and to seek His forgiveness and guidance. It is a practice that, since biblical times, has been a powerful tool for spiritual renewal and for expressing our faith. When you decide to give up foods, whether they are pleasurable or even essential for your body, you are, in a way, drawing God's attention to a greater purpose. This renunciation, which may seem difficult to many, is a profound gesture of devotion and humility. Even in ancient times, Jesus gave us clear guidance on how to proceed when we fast. He warned us against the temptation to flaunt this spiritual practice, making it seem like an act of self-promotion in front of others. When Jesus told His disciples not to fast with the intention of being publicly praised, He was emphasizing that fasting is a legitimate spiritual discipline, but that it must be done with the right motivation. The expression "whenever you fast" used by Jesus shows that He recognizes fasting as an important and valid spiritual practice. Fasting, after all, is more than just abstaining from food. It is a conscious decision to temporarily abstain from a bodily desire, usually related to food, in favor of a deeper spiritual need. During this time, instead of physically eating, the person dedicates themselves to prayer, seeking a more intimate connection with God, asking for His intervention in the spiritual world and in their life. However, if the aim of fasting is to receive praise from others for your appearance of spirituality, then the only reward you will receive will be human approval, not divine. It's natural for people to have concerns when it comes to fasting, especially if they've never experienced it before. The idea of going without food, even for a short period, can seem daunting. Many people become anxious about questions such as, will I feel hungry? Will the hunger be unbearable? These are legitimate questions, considering that we are used to eating 3 times a day, following a regular pattern. In addition, others worry about whether they will have enough strength and determination to complete the fast. There's a common fear of starting something that seems too big to complete. And in the midst of all this, imagine fasting and seeing a TV commercial suggesting that a bar of chocolate could be the solution to overcoming an afternoon energy slump. At such times, the temptation can be great. Another concern many people have is what their friends or family will think if they find out they're fasting. Will they think I'm weird or radical? The answer to this concern is simple. You don't fast to impress your friends or win their approval. And in general, it's not even necessary to tell them that you're fasting. As Jesus said in his instruction, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that it will not be evident to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who does not see. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Here, Jesus was teaching us to keep our religious devotion out of the spotlight, without making it an exhibition for others. Fasting, in this context, is an intimate commitment between you and God, an act of faith that needs no human recognition. You can perfectly well fast in secret, without anyone knowing. However, there are also times when fasting can be a collective act, such as in situations where the church or a community of faith unites in prayer and fasting to tackle a specific problem. A biblical example of this is the fast of Ezra, who fasted with around 4,000 people, or the story of Esther, who asked all the believing Jews to fast with her in search of divine intervention. Today, this collective practice still takes place. One example is the National Day of Prayer and Fasting, in which Christians from all over the country are invited to take part, usually held in May. At these times, fasting takes on a communal character, where the union of many in prayer and abstinence reinforces the request for divine intervention in critical situations. Whether individually or collectively, fasting remains a powerful spiritual tool, a way of drawing closer to God and seeking His guidance and blessings in our lives. Fasting, unlike a simple diet or a change in diet for health reasons, has a deeply spiritual purpose. It's not just about eliminating certain foods or reducing calories. Fasting is a biblical practice rich in meaning, which aims to strengthen our spiritual life and bring us closer to God. There are different types of fasting, each with its own particularities, and many reasons why someone might choose to fast, but they all share one element in common: the combination of this practice with prayer. Fasting, therefore, is more than just giving up food. It is a spiritual discipline that can transform anyone into a true prayer warrior for God. Some people think that, as Christians, we don't need strict disciplines. However, just as we strengthen our muscles through physical exercise, we also increase our spiritual strength through spiritual practices such as fasting. It's important to remember that, as followers of Christ, we are soldiers in a spiritual army. And just like any good soldier, we need to be proficient in various disciplines in order to be prepared for battle. Fasting is just one of these many disciplines that help prepare us for the spiritual challenges we face. Jesus, in His wisdom, taught His disciples that when we pray, whether for our church, for our loved ones, or for the salvation of others, we will face opposition from Satan. Fasting, in this context, becomes a powerful weapon in our spiritual armory. Comparing fasting to mountain climbing is an apt metaphor. Just as climbing requires physical and mental effort, fasting also demands as much of us spiritually as it does physically. Entering this journey requires a clear understanding of what we are doing and the realization that the path can be arduous. However, the rewards, both spiritual and personal, are worth every effort. If this is your first fast, start slowly. Don't feel pressurized into a prolonged fast right from the start. God honors every step of faith we take, no matter how small it may seem in the eyes of others. What may seem like a small gesture is actually a big step in your spiritual journey. In addition, it is essential that you pay attention to the attitude of your heart during fasting. The motivation and sincerity behind the fast are just as important as the act of fasting itself. Imagine a man proposing to a woman. It's not the length of the proposal that matters, but the love and sincerity behind it. In the same way, when starting a fast, don't worry so much about its duration. The most important thing is that your relationship with God is in tune. God, who knows the deepest secrets of our hearts, values the sincerity of our prayers and our willingness to draw closer to Him more than the amount of time we spend fasting. So if you've never fasted before, a good starting point is to skip a meal and dedicate that time to prayer. In the Old Testament, Jews were instructed to fast 1 day a year during Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. According to the Jewish calendar, this day began at sunset and ended at sunset the following day. This practice was rooted in the teaching of God, who instructed the Jews to count their days beginning in the evening and continuing in the morning, as described in Genesis 1 verse 5. If you're planning to start a fast, one suggestion is to start at sunset or a little earlier. This means that you can choose to skip the evening meal, and the next day, abstain from breakfast and lunch. This type of fast, following biblical tradition, can be an excellent way to begin your spiritual journey through fasting, respecting your body's limits and honoring God with your dedication. The practice of fasting among the Jews, as mentioned, often ended with a communal meal at nightfall, marking the end of the period of abstinence. However, this practice need not be a solitary and isolated experience. Although individual prayer and fasting are fundamental pillars of spiritual intercession, there is transformative power in sharing this journey with someone else. If you've never fasted before, or if you're looking for a specific answer to your prayers, it can be extremely valuable to invite someone to walk alongside you in this experience of fasting and prayer. Joining forces in spiritual moments can have a profound impact on both your spiritual life and your relationship with God. Jesus, in his teachings, emphasized the power of agreement in Matthew 18 verses 18 to 19. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Truly I tell you, if two of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. These verses not only refer to individual prayer, but also to the commitment and unity that is formed when two or more people decide to seek God in agreement, whether in prayer, fasting, or both. We can compare fasting to planning a holiday trip. When you travel alone, the experience can be enriching, but traveling with someone who shares your interests makes the journey much more memorable and enjoyable. You can plan together, dream together, and create memories that will become all the more special for having been lived in partnership. Similarly, shared fasting tends to be more focused and meaningful, as mutual strength and support during the process can result in a more intense and rewarding spiritual experience. What's more, fasting with someone else offers a number of additional advantages. Firstly, you'll have someone to share your doubts, fears, and questions with. If fasting seems intimidating or challenging, the strength and determination of a partner can be the support you need to overcome these obstacles. Having someone to talk to, call to ask how the fast is going, or simply share the daily challenges can be a powerful incentive to stay the course. And at the end of the fast, the celebration becomes even sweeter when shared. Just as when you climb a mountain, accomplishing such a feat alone is a personal victory, but achieving it with others makes the celebration that much more joyful. Hugs, smiles, and the satisfaction of having overcome a challenge together make the experience of fasting in a group a collective victory and much more meaningful. Another crucial aspect of fasting with a friend is the mutual responsibility that this partnership brings. Knowing that someone is aware of your fast reduces the temptation to break the commitment, be it for a snack or the desire to give up. If you've ever taken part in runs or walks in search of health, you understand how having a partner by your side can help you stick to your commitment, especially in times of difficulty. Even if you are a strong and disciplined person, the presence of a friend can make a considerable difference to your spiritual journey. For those who don't feel so confident, partnering with someone who shares the same faith and goal can be the key to staying firm and persevering. However, before embarking on any fast, it is essential to be clear about its purpose. Fasting is not just a spiritual practice without direction or purpose. On the contrary, there must be a clear and specific intention behind your decision to fast. There are countless reasons to fast, and identifying these reasons is fundamental to an effective and transformative experience. Remember the biblical story of David facing Goliath. While the Israelite soldiers had countless justifications for avoiding battle, David had a purpose so clear and firm that it led him to face the giant without hesitation. In the same way, fasting shouldn't just be a routine practice. It should be carried out with a clear and meaningful purpose. So before you start your fast, take some time to reflect and write down the reasons why you are fasting. Having these reasons written down on a piece of paper in front of you will help you stay focused and determined during your fast. When we leave the reasons only in our minds, they can become vague or even lost amid the difficulties of fasting. On the contrary, having a clear and objective list of what you hope to achieve by fasting will give you the strength and clarity you need to keep going, even in the most challenging moments. In this way, your fast will be an experience not just of renunciation, but of spiritual strengthening, clear direction, and a deep connection with God. To succeed in a fast, it is essential to start with careful and deliberate planning. Don't treat fasting as a casual experience or an occasional challenge. Instead, adopt a strategic approach to ensure that you not only start, but also maintain and complete the fast successfully. If you don't dedicate yourself fully to planning, it's very likely that you'll face difficulties and even fail to achieve your goal. Avoid the "I'll try until I'm hungry" mentality that many adopt, only to give up at the first sign of discomfort. Fasting should be more than a passing endeavor. It is a serious commitment to your spirituality and your search for God. Fasting is a profound spiritual practice that requires a firm and decisive commitment. When preparing to fast, make a resolute commitment to stick with the practice for the planned period, no matter what circumstances arise. You are not just trying to be more spiritual or seeking a temporary increase in your connection with God. You are dedicating yourself to a journey of faith that involves renunciation and fervent seeking. Success in fasting comes not only from your own willpower, but also from divine grace and help. Therefore, enter the fast with the realization that your strength comes from God's grace and the spiritual assistance He offers. This is the strictest type of fast, in which you abstain from all food and drink. A notable example of absolute fasting is what the Apostle Paul experienced after his vision of the Lord Jesus on the road to Damascus. For 3 days, Paul neither ate nor drank, Acts 9 verse 9, and his experience was a reflection of an intense and meaningful fast. For beginners, it is recommended to avoid absolute fasting, as it is more suitable for those facing deep spiritual crises or struggling with serious problems, such as addictions or powerful spiritual adversaries. This type of fast involves abstaining from solid food, while drinking liquids is permitted. In biblical practice, fasting is often associated with abstinence from solid foods, and there aren't many restrictions regarding the consumption of liquids. In Luke 4 verse 2, we see Jesus fasting for 40 days, and although there is no explicit mention of liquids, it is common for fasting people to avoid pleasurable drinks such as soft drinks and juices. This approach is in line with the Old Testament description of affliction and fasting, Isaiah 58 verse 3, reflecting the idea of renunciation and humility. Partial fasting, also known as Daniel's fast, involves eliminating certain foods or drinks, but not all of them. Daniel, in his refusal to eat food from the king's table, asked to be tested with a restricted diet of vegetables and water for 10 days, Daniel 1 verse 12. This type of fast not only excludes specific foods, such as meats and pleasurable drinks, but can also be adjusted to include foods you want to avoid, such as desserts and highly pleasurable items. In Daniel 10 verse 3, we see another example of partial fasting, where Daniel avoided pleasant foods, meat and wine, and also abstained from using lotions. This shows that partial fasting can be adapted to focus on specific elements that are meaningful to the individual. John Wesley, founder and prominent leader of the Methodist movement, established strict fasting practices that served as an example to his followers and contributed significantly to the success of his mission. Wesley summoned all the preachers in his circuit to meet in conferences at the New Chapel or in London every 2 or 3 months. These meetings were crucial moments for spiritual preparation and renewal of commitment to the Methodist cause. To prepare for these conferences, Wesley adopted a practice of intense fasting. He abstained from food and drink other than natural wholemeal bread and drinking water for 10 days. This period of fasting was not just a practice of self-denial, but an expression of his fervent search for spiritual power and divine direction. Wesley believed that the effectiveness of his ministry and the spiritual influence on his preachers were deeply linked to his discipline of fasting and prayer. At the end of these conferences, the preachers left with a renewed determination to transform the world around them. Wesley's spiritual dedication to fasting and prayer reflected God's honor upon his work, resulting in the establishment of the largest Protestant denomination in the world, a testimony to the efficacy and power of spiritual commitment. Although less common among Christians, rotation fasting is a practice used mainly for medical and diagnostic purposes. This type of fasting is often used to identify allergic reactions to specific foods and to cleanse the digestive system. The method involves an initial fast, which can be normal or absolute, followed by a controlled introduction of food groups on alternate days. During rotation fasting, the patient starts with a 1-day fast and then consumes only one specific food group each day over a period of 6 days. This approach makes it possible to observe how each food group affects the body and to identify possible causes of physical problems or adverse reactions. Rotation fasting is a valuable tool for eliminating and excluding foods that may be contributing to symptoms of discomfort or allergies, facilitating a more accurate diagnosis and a more effective treatment plan. When deciding to start a fast, it is essential to consider several factors to ensure that the experience is effective and suited to your needs and circumstances. Here are some detailed guidelines to help you make the best choice for your fast. 1. First-time fasting factor. If you are about to embark on your first experience with fasting, it is advisable to start with a more accessible fast to familiarize yourself with the practice. A one-day fast, such as that practiced on Yom Kippur, is an ideal starting point. This type of fast involves abstaining from food and usually limiting liquids, allowing your body to adjust to the new rhythm without causing too much stress. If you are considering a longer fast to address a significant or ongoing problem, a gradual approach may be more appropriate. Instead of starting directly with a 3-day fast, you could opt for a fast of 1 day a week for 3 weeks. This approach allows your body and mind to progressively adapt to the practice of fasting. Remember that fasting is a journey of learning and growth. The first experience should be seen as an opportunity to train your body and soul, adjusting to the new demands. A normal fast, in which you abstain from food and consume only liquids for 1 day, can help prepare your body for longer fasts in the future, minimizing adverse reactions. 2. Combination factor. The choice of fasting type should be aligned with the specific purpose of your fast. For routine requests or needs, a normal fast may be sufficient. However, if you are facing a more serious situation or an ongoing concern, considering a fast with stricter requirements may be more appropriate. This could include fasting from certain types of food or drink, or even an absolute fast, depending on the severity of the problem. Matching the reason for fasting with the type of fast you choose helps ensure that your practice is aligned with your spiritual and physical goals. A careful and intentional approach maximizes the effectiveness of the fast and the spiritual connection you seek. 3. Comfort factor. It's important to choose a type of fasting that you feel comfortable doing. Fasting should be a practice that you can maintain with confidence, without doubt or guilt. The choice of fast should reflect your personal capabilities and limitations. If you feel insecure about the fast you are planning, adjust it according to your needs and concerns. Your fast should be an experience that contributes to your spiritual growth and doesn't add unnecessary stress. Make sure that the fast you choose is manageable and that you are comfortable with the decision you have made. Sincerity and peace of mind during the fast are essential for an enriching spiritual experience. 4. Time factor. Proper time planning is crucial to the successful realization of the fast. Evaluate your weekly schedule and consider which days are most appropriate for fasting. Avoid starting a fast at times of special events or important commitments, such as holidays, weddings, or large gatherings. Starting with a short fast can help you avoid surprises and adjust your body and mind to the practice. Fasting for 1 day is a sensible initial choice, providing a manageable and less challenging experience. As you familiarize yourself with fasting and its effects, you can consider longer, more rigorous fasts in the future. Regardless of the type of fast you choose, it's crucial that you start with a clear understanding of your goals and a well-defined plan. Fasting is not just a religious practice, it is a personal commitment to God, a quest for spiritual transformation, and a path to a deeper relationship with the divine. By preparing and dedicating yourself to fasting in earnest, you not only experience profound spiritual benefits, but also demonstrate a robust faith and unwavering determination in your spiritual journey. Fasting is not just about abstaining from food, but about the intensity of your desire to draw closer to God and the sincerity of your prayers. May your fasting journey be marked by wisdom, discipline, and spiritual strength. Thank God for the opportunity to grow and strengthen through this practice, and remember that He sees and rewards what is done in secret. If this content has been valuable to you, I ask for your support with your subscription so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Together, we can enlighten more minds and expand our understanding. Thank you for being here, and God bless you.